Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Alexis Batulis with Columbus, US, and today we have a special presentation for you on Microsoft Power Platform and how it works with Dynamics 365. We started the call by putting everyone on mute, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box on the upper right-hand side of the screen to ask any questions that may come up. At the end, we'll have time for a Q&A with our presenter, as well as our panel of Columbus Tech specialists. Please be sure to stick around afterwards for a special announcement. We have a brand new virtual Columbus workshop coming next month. You are all the first to receive this news, so we don't want you to miss out on this free opportunity to continue your Power BI training. Finally, we are recording this session, and we'll be sending a link of the recording to all attendees within an hour after the webcast. Now I'm excited to introduce your presenter today, Christian Peterson. Christian is our lead solution architect here at Columbus. Christian is a digital advisor with experience in the distribution industry, as well as the discrete and process manufacturing industries. He is here today to discuss his findings after attending the Microsoft Power Platform event in San Diego. So without further ado, Christian, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'm excited to see as many people attending this webinar. Definitely thrilled. First of all, I hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy out there. And you know, in light of everything that is going on right now, I appreciate that people took a little bit of time out of their calendars to join this webinar. I guess that means that you guys are actually pretty curious and a little bit excited about this topic as well. So yeah, I'm definitely thrilled to kind of give a little bit of background what all the hype about Power Platform is, and kind of give you a high level overview and even show you some of the new features. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So let me first see here if I can jump to the next slide. So let me just give you a little high level overview of what we're going to try to cover in this webinar. I think the teaser did promise like a fast paced webinar, so we'll try to kind of live up to that. I have quite a bit of content that I want to try to cover. First, I want to try to give a high level overview, acknowledging that some of you guys might not actually have a lot of background or experience working with the Power Platform. So we kind of want to start at a high level and try to get an overview of what the Power Platform is and what tools are included, and kind of cover some of all that hype and what these tools can be used for. And then from there, we're going to kind of walk into a more detailed walkthrough of how the tools in the platform works with Dynamics 365. And at the end of that, I actually want to discuss the use cases, and that's where I'm hoping that you guys would actually time in a little bit and give some input of what you guys think could be interesting use cases for these tools. And then finally, if we have time for it, we'll probably go a little bit into some of the technical considerations around especially Power Apps, but let's see if we have time for that. And again, that's not the main purpose of this webinar. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So as I said, like the first thing I want to do is just give you a high level overview. The little display that you see here on the screen is basically the 4 tools that are in the Power Platform. So we have 4 major tools. So we have Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent. And really, each of these tools play their like a different role in this platform. So the Power Virtual Agent and Power Apps are really 2 tools that are kind of meant to interact with the end user, whether that end user is an internal employee, if it's a customer, a vendor, or someone else, right? So it's a way to interact with the end user. Now, Power BI, on the other hand, is really a tool to take that data that is either in another application or captured via Power Apps or the virtual agent, and and display that data and make it visual and make it interactive. So it's a data communication tool. And Power Automate is, and for those of you who have worked with it, in the past, it was actually called Power Flow or Microsoft Flow, but now they call it Power Automate. So it's the same thing, so don't get confused by that. But it's really the working horse of that whole platform. It's like running in the background. It's often like overlooked in presentations, but it's really that thing that sits in the background and enables a lot of the things. So it moves data around, it moves documents around, it triggers event, it can trigger workflows. So it's really the engine that kind of binds everything together. Now, one of the things that really makes me pretty excited about the Power Platform is obviously that link over to the Dynamics 365, as you see there, and even the Office 365. But obviously, I come from a Dynamics background. I've been working with AX and D365 for finance and supply chains for the past 6-7 years. So I'm definitely very excited about that close interaction with your ERP system, and we're going to try to take a look at today, like how it actually allows you to take some of those core processes and make them mobile, make them automated, and make them more efficient. And the way that connection is handled is via data connectors, and we're gonna look a little bit further into that during this webinar. So what is all the hype about? So I guess I kind of mentioned it a little bit. So to me, it's really the fact that these tools are so user-friendly. It's a low to no code kind of tool set. So you don't have to have a lot of technical background to be able to work with these tools, but they give you the ability and the freedom to really create some pretty cool apps or visualizations or automated tool sets that you can embed into your day-to-day process. So I think, to me, that's one of the key things that really makes this super exciting. The other thing is really when you start working in the full Microsoft platform is the fact that this really runs across the whole ecosystem. And with that in mind, I'm actually gonna pull up a little overview here that Microsoft has released recently, and with the risk of kind of overwhelming some people with a lot of information. I tested this on Alexis yesterday, and she said as long as I explain it, it would probably be okay. But yeah, so here in April, Microsoft introduced this kind of full overview of their Dynamics ecosystem, and as you can see, there's a lot of different applications. I know that some of you guys out there are definitely running, D365 for finance and supply chain, so the ERP platform up here. There's probably also someone on this call that are running NAV or Business Central, or even like the CRM tools. But as you can see here, like Microsoft has like a full palette of super exciting tools that really covers every aspect of your business and the need for kind of system support for your business processes. But the reason why I wanted to show this figure is like when I zoomed out a little bit, but when we zoom out a little bit and go down here to the bottom, I think this is really where I see a lot of the benefits and the hype around Power Platform is that it really is a platform that kind of supports that whole ecosystem. So as soon as you start working with some of these other applications in the ecosystem, so again, you might be an ERP user right now, but then, and you probably also have Office 365, most companies do, but then when you start working with CRM applications or the for example, like customer insights, which is something that I'm starting to work more and more with, you start recognizing some of these tools from the Power Platform where you kind of use Power BI across all the tools to do the visualizations. You might use Power Apps to consume data or aggregate data from different systems and put it into the hands of the users. And the same thing, as I mentioned before, like you have Power Automate working there in the background, taking data from one system and might trigger an event in another system. So again, I think that's really the key and something that is definitely worth exploring and really kind of brings a lot of value. So again, going back to the overview, I think I just wanted to share that because at least to me that visualization gives a good overview, and it kind of explains a little bit why this Power Platform is so hyped and why it's so important in that Microsoft world. Now, you could definitely use these tools even though you're not running like the full Microsoft world. You see that you could connect it to your other systems and to your other applications as well. But there are definitely some benefits when you're in that dynamic space. So with that being said, how does it work with Dynamics? And especially Dynamics 365 for finance and supply chain, which is where I have my experience, but it's very similar with the BC or Business Central application. Now, if you are running Dynamics GP, it's a little bit different because it's not on the cloud. It's definitely still possible to use these tools and get good use out of them. But I think what we want to really target today is that use with the D365 on the cloud. So really, the key here, a little too quick. The key here is these data connectors. You'll see them down there in the bottom of the screen, and these direct connectors into Dynamics 365. So for those of you who are familiar with exchanging data with D365 for finance and supply chain, you know the concept of data entities. So again, Microsoft has built this framework that takes data from the ERP applications and put them into entities that makes it really easy to exchange data with other applications or anything outside the ERP system. So that being like customers, vendors, just all kind of grouped together in specific entities. And the Power Platform uses that same framework. They have connectors into a lot of other tools as well. So for example, like Power Automate has connectors into your Office and into your Outlook. So if you authorize it and give it access, it can actually look directly into your inbox and start, for example, taking attached documentation off emails and putting them somewhere that you want, or including that in an automated workflow. So yeah, there's a ton of these data connectors, and I think that's really the key to kind of make everything work together. So with that being said, like one thing is to exchange the data, but another cool feature, and I'm going to show you a little bit of this later on, is that when you've created your Power App or a cool Power BI visualization, now you can actually take that object and pull it right back into your ERP system, so into our beloved workspaces in D365. So you could actually take this content and pull it right back into where your employees or where people might work on a day-to-day basis and see it from right in there. So not only are you going to be able to run Power Apps on your mobile phone or on the powerapp.com platform, but you could also kind of put it right into your ERP system. As I mentioned, I'll show you an example of that later. So with that being said, let's try to take a look at some of the features and some of the stuff that we've been working on. So the first thing that I want to show you is a quality app that we've created that interacts directly with Dynamics 365 for finance and supply chain, using these data entities that I talked about. So taking data directly out of D365 and kind of interacting in real time. So let's take a look at how that looks. So I am gonna try to mirror my phone here. Just give me a second while it connects. Okay, and let's try to switch over to this little guy. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see my phone now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up my Microsoft apps. You can see I have quite a few, but the one that we really wanna look at right now is our Power Apps. So we'll let that open up, and you can see I have different Power Apps in here, but the one that I wanna show you first is our quality app. So let's try to take a look at that. So in its core, like we have four major features here. We can create an ad hoc quality order. We can enter test results. We can create a non-conformance, or we can manage batch dispositions, all from a mobile phone, a tablet, and it's directly linked into your ERP system. Let's try to look at creating a quality order. So here I could select like what kind of reference this quality order is attached to. So let's say that I want to do an ad hoc quality order related to a production order. So at first it's going to ask me to pick the production order. I'm just going to pick a random one. Oop, was fat finger a little bit, right? So then, and you can see like down here, it already pulled in the item number. It's a little hard to see. We'll probably have to work a little bit on the colors, especially when I'm displaying like this. But basically it's going to ask like, so what kind of test do you want to run? So let me see here. I'm going to say I'm going to do some lab tests, and it's going to ask me how many do you want to test. So I'm just going to keep it simple. And you can see here it gave me success already. So it already now created a quality order in D365, and it's asking me, okay, you created a quality order like a quality inspection. Do you also want to like type in the test results? So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. So again, it's referencing like a quality order directly in the ERP system. You can see the first thing that it's asking me for is the temperature. So I'm just still going to put in the quantity, and then I'm going to put in 45 degrees. I'm going to save that. Okay, and then some concentration. I'm going to put that in as well. And then let's see, I think I can put in 10. It should be able to save that, and then go and submit it. So it might be hard to see, but yeah, down in that test result, you could see it actually automatically gave me feedback. It updated based on the settings that you have in your ERP system. So it says, oh, but 45 degrees is an acceptable temperature for this given product. So the test really passed. Okay, so let me go back. And really what we could do now is that we can jump straight into our ERP system here into our workspace. So you can see here, we have a workspace here that we've created at Columbus for quality management with some content. So again, I could go in and look at my open quality orders, and we should be able to see the quality order that we just created. So you can see here, it's right here, and it updated our test results. So yeah, from a quality order perspective, we just wanted to make sure that you could take that quality control process with you in a mobile interface. So let me just jump back to the app real quick. Okay, so now it's back open again. So again, I'm going to skip the enter test results because it's very similar to what I just showed. And yeah, I want to show you a nice little feature here. You probably saw it on the other screen as well, but it gave me the option to add an attachment. But I'm going to do that for a non-conformance. Now, let's say that you're a quality manager or quality technicians, and you're out the floor, and you see there is some kind of an incident, like a quality incident, and you want to create a non-conformance. So again, let's say that it's related to a vendor and a purchase order. So again, first thing it does is that it's going to ask us for the problem type. So if you're going to say that we're looking at some inbound receiving and there's some issue with, for example, labeling. Again, all of this data in terms of problem types and all that stuff is all set up like that is done in your ERP system. So basically your Power App is just visualizing that and kind of looking into that data. So it's going to ask us what vendor account. So in this case, I'm going to take our European account because they have a tendency to screw up labeling. I can say that because I'm from Europe. So, and you can see there's only one purchase order. So it's asking me to select the purchase order and the item on that purchase order that is related to this non-conformance. And that's basically it. So I'm going to hit OK, and it created the non-conformance. We could go and look at that in a second. But really what it's doing here is saying, like, it's great that you created a non-conformance, but are you sure you don't want to attach a file or a picture? So I want to document that they actually messed up the labeling, and that can cause some issues. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take a picture. Just going to do a little picture off the screen here so you can see that it's actually some live stuff, right? So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to use this picture. I'm going to upload it, right? So now it actually already uploaded. So let's go back here. So now let's try to go back to our workspace. So as some of you might have seen there, I actually have one that is called new non-conformances. So if I go in here, I should see the non-conformance. You can see I just created this one. The date is today. As you'll notice up here at the paperclip, I actually have like that attachment, like that little picture that we just took. So it's attached right to it. So again, I think this is a great example of how powerful this platform is, and really kind of allowing us to take some of those features that normally lived in the ERP system, and where you had to kind of go back to your work disk to interact with and collect data and enter data. Now you can actually bring it with you and kind of take it out to the floor. Okay, so yeah, that was. Let me pull back up my. So there's one last thing that I wanted to show you related to this one is the managed batch disposition. So again, another cool little feature that you could do in Power Apps, and some of most of these stuff are just like basic features out of the Power App platform where you could just kind of drag and drop these functionalities in. So you can see here, manage that batch disposition. So let's say that I'm walking around in the warehouse, and now I see like one of the batches that was just produced, and I suspect that there's something wrong with it, and I want to make sure that it absolutely do not get fed into a new production process or send out to a customer. And I want to make sure that I put that batch on hold until I've investigated further. So now it's going to ask me to just scan my item and then scan the batch just to make sure that we get the accurate information. So I obviously printed like these labels out, but imagine they were like printed and attached to or labeled onto a box out there. So again, having the data in here, and now it allows me to go in and put that batch on hold. And again, for those of you who are familiar with the quality features in D365 for finance and operations, knows that like these batch disposition codes are all something that we can set up. So I just in my demo environment, I only have the two, so it's either available or none available, but I could have as many as I wanted. Okay, so you can see here, it goes in and it's now on hold. So I could try to scan it again, and hopefully we'll see that now it's actually unavailable. Let's see here. So you can see here that the current disposition code, which is right above the little drop down there, it's now unavailable because I just set it so. So again, just another cool little feature, I think. So, okay, so let me go back here to the main screen. So that's a great example of how you could take a process that is normally kind of performed manually on a laptop or on your work desk, but being able to kind of take that out into the production floor. Another app that we've been working on, and that's really using some of the very new features that Microsoft has launched related to the AI builder, is this invoice processing. So we created a little app that is using this technology and really allowing us to read documents and lift information off documents. So let's try to see how that works. So again, I'm still on my mobile phone. I'm going to show you how we can actually use that in your ERP system as well. But here, let's just try to first take a picture of an invoice. So again, hopefully this will work. This is always a little tricky. Okay, so we'll say we're going to use this picture. And now it's running, it's been trained, this model has been trained in the background based on several documents from the same vendor, but we'll see if it's able to read it. I think I kind of took a little weird picture, but yeah, so you can see here, it finds some of that information and is able to read it. And now it's basically just asking me to, okay, make sure you pick the right vendor, and then we can submit it. In this case, it actually didn't find the items, but again, you still got like the total value. So again, it's going to save you time editing in data and making sure that you don't type in a wrong invoice number. But instead of submitting this and actually creating an invoice journal, what I really want to show is that we've created this app, and it was really not intended to be used on a mobile phone, like the invoice processing. You could definitely use it if you still get like physical mails with your invoices. But really, I think one of the great features, as I mentioned, is that we can actually take an app like that and tie it into a workspace. So let's see here in our invoicing workspace. So you can see here, I actually have the same app, and I inserted it into our workspace. So now I have a tool that is directly in the ERP system without even touching the ERP system in terms of coding or customizations. It's really just an extension to the core functionality. So now let's see here, I can go and I can actually take a document here. Let's say we're gonna take this one and do the same thing. So now it's also reading PDF files. It's not only pictures, but it's also reading PDF files. And pulling in the data here. And you can see, because the quality here is better, it actually found the items and stuff. I'm gonna pick a vendor, and then right now we're manually typing in this, let's see, the batch number, but obviously that could be automated with a number sequence. Okay, so again, this is a little bit of an experiment, but I'm hoping that we could see that it actually came in here. Yeah, so we are able to create a new invoice just like that, with just reading information straight off of a document. And you could see, so now you could go in and you could process it so it has the right supplier. So again, I think that's just a really cool example of how these tools are really nicely integrated with Dynamics, which is obviously one of the main purposes of this webinar, was to just give you a really good insight into how it works. So some people might like wondering, like, how did you get that app in there? So again, I could actually add the invoice app straight to this this form as well. So it's really as simple as clicking here, doing like add an app. So you can see I actually already did it on this screen, so this is probably not the best screen to use an example. So let me just go back one step. Okay, so let's see from here, right? So like this is my overview of my invoice journal. So again, I can actually go in and add an app right here, and it's going to ask me for a name. So I'm just going to call it invoice reader, and then it's going to ask me for an app ID. So the app ID is really something that you could get from your administrator, or if you have access to the app itself, you could just go here and pull it straight out of the app. So you see here, this is my invoice processor, and I'm just going to go in here to the details. I could take the app as simple as this, just copy paste it, put in the app ID, and now it actually asks if I want to have an input from the form that I'm in. So again, if I had created an app that were actually depending on an input, like a data input from the ERP system, I could actually dynamically have it look at like the vendor if I was trying to pull up information around the vendor or something like that. In this case, we don't, because we're only pushing data to D365 for finance and supply chain. So I'm gonna insert it here. I'm just gonna refresh the screen. Let's see here. And now you can see I've actually inserted the app. So I could open the app straight from this form and use it. So again, it's fairly simple, but I think it's super powerful. And I think this is one of the key things that really the Power Platform offers us, is that we can extend functionality out of core systems without really touching them. or touching the base of their code. So those are like the two major Power Apps that I wanted to show you. One other thing that we just touched upon very briefly here was our quality workspace. So you could see I actually have Power BI content as well. So kind of the same concept as before. You see here when I click options, I have the option here to open up and add Power BI content directly into my workspace. So if I've had any content created in Power Apps or in Power BI, I can actually take that and pull it straight into my workspace without doing any kind of customization. So again, I have a ton of little dashboards that I've created that I could pull in. This one that I have right here is another little project that we've been doing. So this is actually taking machine learning predictions, so taking data out of D365, running it against the Azure machine learning model, and giving us some predictions around quality and the likelihood of non-conformances. But that's probably a separate webinar. So that was very centered around Power Apps, a little bit about Power BI. Another tool in that Power Platform toolbox is the virtual agent. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that, but I think it's one of the newer things that Microsoft has added to the platform. And I honestly, personally think that this is very exciting because it's a brand new way of us to communicate with either clients. So most people think customer service when they think about virtual agents, but I really think that it could be applied both internally to, drive an onboarding process. It could be used to help people navigate through your internal systems, or maybe even guide your vendors to better navigate through the vendor collaboration workspace. But I think that the key thing here, and why I think this is so powerful and why it's so important, is that most people think that it's pretty hard to create a virtual agent, and it's only something that you use for like these big companies that they use for their customer service experience. But I actually created a little virtual agent, and I only added one topic, so it's fairly limited in its capabilities, but it can help me when I do my my implementation projects to kind of just decrease the number of emails that I have to write. So instead of having to answer the same questions over and over again, I tried to kind of set up a little virtual agent that could kind of help me answer questions. I added this little, or enabled this little toggle so you can kind of see the logic behind it. But really bear in mind that I only spent probably like 15-20 minutes on creating this. So again, I can start off like greeting, and it's going to come back and tell me that it's a Columbus Global Virtual Agent, and it can help me, answer any questions around projects or the applications that we're implementing. I could obviously opt out and say I'd rather just speak to a human. So I could go in and say, how do I post an invoice? And you can see here on the side, so this is like obviously the technical view. So it's kind of showing you what I've done, like what the setup is. So it's basically giving us a suggestion saying, have you checked out our SharePoint site? Because that's really where we have all our training videos. And more often than not, when we get questions like this, we already have the answer, and we've already kind of documented how you post an invoice. So instead of like having to send 3 or 4 emails back and forth, this can kind of guide them straight to the SharePoint site and direct them to that invoicing video. But let's say that you looked at it and you didn't find anything, so I'm just going to say no. You could see that it's going to go down in other brands, and it's going to say, did you already check the standard Microsoft documentation? And I'm just going to say, yeah, I already checked that. And now it's just going to say, okay, so again, it's fairly simple, but it's basically just kind of directing me in different places before I actually get in touch with a consultant. So yeah, as I said, I think this is something that is very interesting, and something that I'm spending a little bit of time on trying to see where we can use this. I'm actually working a little bit on an internal project where we're trying to see if we could utilize this for our onboarding process. And the cool thing is that you can actually attach these to not only to your web pages or different places like that, but you could actually put them straight into like a Power App or into Microsoft Teams, which I guess we're all using more heavily now after this the coronavirus. We're really being forced to use like these tools more and more. So again, being able to kind of attach a virtual agent like this to Teams would be something that definitely would be very useful. All right, so those are just kind of my my suggestions to what you could use the Power Platform for. You could see here, let's go back to the slide deck and see, so what are the potential use cases? So you could see some of the things that I focused on there were kind of standard manual ERP processes. So really processes that you normally do, but now you have a different platform to do it on, so you can now more freely design that user experience. I've heard a lot of people using it to create e-travelers for their production. So being able to capture and dynamically manage production orders through the production. And they normally use like a combination of a Power App and then a flow that take that data back into D365 or store the data somewhere else. We talked about kind of automating that invoice process, but I think there are other areas that we're still just trying to explore, like that kind of allows us to capture new data. So the virtual agent, as we just saw, is, from my perspective, a very good example of that, because all of a sudden now we get raw data from a lot of users that we normally wouldn't have captured in a structured manner. So now we can actually start doing analysis on that input. So what are the things that, for example, you guys ask me when we implement a project, and then, next time we do a project, we have that data and see, oh, but people actually tend to get hung up in posting invoices or something else. So and the same thing, if you think about like using it for vendors, for onboarding, for customer service, you get a ton of data that you can all of a sudden now capture in a database, and you can start doing analytics on, and that can really help you improve your business processes. And kind of along the same lines, I think one of the cool features that I didn't have time to show you today is in that AI builder functionality that kind of runs across both Power Apps and Power Automate. You can actually do some sentiment analysis on text, so whether it's emails or the input to the bot or whatever text you have, and it can actually go back and tell you, is this positive, is this negative, is it related to this and that. So you can actually start to structure that data, and it's all obviously in an attempt to kind of use that data for meaningful analysis. So with that being said, I kind of want to open it up a little bit and see if there are any questions so far, Alexis, or if there are any good ideas or anything that people are either working on or want to work on in terms of use cases for this Power Platform.
We do have one question here from Corey. Can you dive into the data connector for one of the Power Apps?
We probably can. I think,
maybe
let
offline.
me see here. Yeah, I guess one thing in along those same lines, I could probably try to, if we have time in a second, I could try to open a Power App and look at that data connector. But I actually do have a slide here that kind of gives a little bit of a background. So one thing is the data connector. So what you saw in those two apps that I showed is that we have that data connector that goes directly into D365. And as I mentioned before, really what it does is that you basically just allow the Power App to use the data entities. So it really calls those standard data entities that we use for data migrations or doing standard integrations. Now, in case you're not building a typical, like a simple Canvas app, but if you want to actually store more logic and maybe you want to use some data that is not necessarily stored somewhere, that's where you start moving over into creating another type of app. So again, it's still a Power App, but it's another type that is called a Model-Driven App, and where you can store the data in the common data service, so a database structure that Microsoft has created that kind of runs across all these platforms and really enables that common data integration between all the different tools in the platform. So that's where we also use the standard integration between D365 for finance and operations and the CRM tool. So D365 for sales. So that common data service is like a common place to store data, where you could build some more logic on top of it without going directly into the application. And since we are on that topic, I'm just going to take the next slide, since I think we have time, and then maybe Corey, I can open up and look at that the data connector. But just along the same lines of like whether you use a Canvas app or a model-driven app, really like the key determinator is the complexity of your data and where your data resides, and then how you want your user interface to look. So obviously, like a Canvas app is already like often portrayed as like the more simple version, but as you can see with our app, like you can actually do a lot. So especially with the quality app, you can see there's a lot of functionality and features in there. So I think you could actually do a lot with the Canvas app. And since we have that standard data connector into D365, it's pretty easy to create something that has a little bit more functionality and features. But obviously behind the scenes, it's D365 is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of processing data and in terms of applying the logic and do the lookups and stuff like that. Whereas if you don't have D365 doing that, that's where you might want to go and look at a model-driven app. So I don't know, Corey, if that explained it a little bit. If not, maybe if we do have time and we don't have any other questions, Alexis, maybe we can take a look at it.
We do have another question here from Seth. So is Microsoft coupling their Internet of Things capabilities in Power Apps? Is there a use case for building a Power App driven MES system versus buying a giant one?
Definitely. So that's a very good question, and actually something that we are actively working on. So I think in terms of the whole MES discussion and the Internet of Things, like Microsoft has their own IoT Central. I think it was called IoT Hub. It's probably two different things, but I think right now they're driving towards the IoT Central. So a hub where you can connect all your data devices or all your IoT devices and capture that data, and then you can store that data into what Microsoft called the Synapse. So basically a good place to store that data. But then from there, you can really use the Power Platform either to trigger those events, or you could take that data and trigger events in your ERP system. So whether that's like posting a production order, or take that data and add it into your asset management system to trigger a preventative maintenance. So the Power Platform definitely plays a role in that framework, and in that whole conversation around IoT and MES. And as I said, it's actually something that we are working actively on. I just last week had a meeting with one of my colleagues back from Denmark, and where we were talking about what they've been doing and what the options are of doing like a full MES kind of scenario using Power Platform and that IoT Central. So hopefully that answered a little bit. Like as I said, if you want to know a little bit more, like feel free to reach out to us, and we can maybe discuss a little bit more, because it's definitely one of the more complex questions to just answer.
All right, great.
All right. Okay.
So if there's no additional questions here, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's presentation. Christian, could you go to the next slide here?
Yeah.
All right, so we do have a brand new workshop coming next month on May 12th called Dashboard in a Day. We're very excited to offer this free training on Microsoft Power BI So we'll be sharing the link to register for this workshop in a follow-up email along with our recording today, so you can forward that to colleagues. I'll also share it here in the chat, so you could check that out.
All right, great.
Let me send it
Thanks
here.
for that.
So in Dashboard in a Day, you'll be shown step-by-step instruction, and at the end of the training, you'll have a workable dashboard with the ability to ask questions in real time to a group of our Columbus experts here. So you can register for the workshop through this link, or you can respond to the email we'll be sending out if you have any additional questions on the content in this webinar or anything else that Columbus can assist you with. That will go directly to our team, and we can connect you with Christian. Again, you can visit our website at columbusglobal.com for more information. And Christian, did you have anything else to share?
Not other than I think like this next webinar here with Mike Sims is definitely a great next step. So again, the Power BI is a tool within the Power Platform. So again, a level deeper than what we tried to cover today, where you actually get some hands-on experiment or experience. And then yeah, if we still have time, like maybe I could just go back to that questions about the data connectors just real quick if we have 5 more minutes.
Absolutely, let's do that. And if anybody wants to drop off, we will be recording this, so you can always catch up later.
Okay, so yeah, so just let me first go back to D365 for finance operations. So again, it's a great questions around those data connectors, and I think it's something that I've been asked a lot when I talk to people about this. So I'm gonna start off in D365, and then if you're familiar with it, you might know that we have like our data management here. So that's really our kind of workspace and center for exchanging data, at least to a certain extent. There are definitely other ways you could do it. Now apparently my oh, there we go. So when I say data connectors, so from a D365 finance and operations perspective, what it really is that you have these data entities in here. That is a long list of not tables, but rather views or entities that collect the relevant data from different tables. So again, we could search for customer. So you can see here we have let's see here, customers V3. So again, this is the entity that kind of collects the most important information around the customer cart and put it into one entity that we could then call from either Power BI or Power Apps or even Flow. So again, let me see here the way that this looks. So you can see here over in Power Apps, you can see I have connections, right? So I think now I'm so you can see here, I have a connection directly into D365 for finance and operations with my account. So again, going further into these details, you feel free to reach out to us and we could kind of discuss how you set up that connection. But as long as you're using the same tenant, it's actually pretty straightforward to set up this data connection. And now when you have that, you'll be able to kind of explore the data entities from within D365 when you kind of do your Power App. So that's really how it works. And as I said, the more and more familiar you get with this framework, you recognize that it's kind of the same framework that is used when you connect to Power Apps, Power BI, even trying to connect D365 for finance and operations with CRM. So hopefully that gave a little bit of background. I guess that's probably as deep as we can go right now. Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Christian, for giving us a great overview of Microsoft Dynamics' latest in Power Platform. And that concludes our webinar today. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.